At Starbound, we tell stories the human way, not with artificial voices or AI garbage. What's HFY without humanity? Subscribe to keep it that way. I'm Daniel Pierce, and I'm going to be your narrator. Now, let's begin. As a merchant who delighted in sharing often exaggerated tales of places he had heard of or visited, Severe could hardly contain his excitement when a chance encounter in a bar led to a meeting with a gullible Trazier named Amo. Now, with his favorite drink in hand and his throat warmed, he was ready to retell his favorite story. A tale of a distant planet his fellow merchants loved to boast about. A death world beyond imagination. Home to a species so improbable, it was hard to believe they were real.
Are you even listening, Amo? Because this is where it gets good.
Severe leaned forward in his chair, the leather creaking under his weight as he positioned himself closer to his companion in their booth near the counter. His black eyes focused intently on Amo, who apparently had failed to read the room and decided to finish his bowl of soup, a local delicacy featuring glowing tentacles that seemed far from appealing. Right when Severe was about to launch into his story, Severe's yellow head shook in disapproval, the movement causing his sensitive antennae to slap against the yellow skin of his face more than once. He winced at the minor discomfort and took another sip of his drink, the amber liquid burning pleasantly down his throat as his new friend continued slurping the last of the tentacles with apparent relish.
I'm done, Severe. Please, tell me about the Death World,
Amos said, shifting in his chair with an eagerness that made the seat groan in protest. His large blue eyes, each the size of a small fruit and possessing an unnerving ability to blink independently, contrasted strangely against his dark feathered bipedal body. The sight of Amo always took some getting used to. He wasn't an avian, despite what one might assume at first glance. No beak adorned his face, no majestic crest crowned his head, no wings extended from his back. He was simply a typical bipedal form covered entirely in feathers rather than fur, each plume a deep midnight blue. The overall effect was deeply unsettling, like looking at something that evolution had started but forgotten to finish. Even the other patrons in the surrounding booths would occasionally steal uncomfortable glances at the Trazier. Severe cleared his throat dramatically, savoring the moment before beginning his tale.
The Tridarian merchants, those brave souls who venture where others fear to tread. They told me about this world, a place so hostile, so utterly incompatible with civilized life that even hearing about it makes sensible beings check their insurance policies.
He paused for effect, watching Amo lean forward with his eyes wide.
First, the gravity,
Severe continued, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial tone that forced Amo to lean even closer.
Twice the Federation standard. Twice! Can you imagine? Your bones would creak like old ship hulls under that pressure. The Tridarians said they needed powered exoskeletons just to walk around, and even then, they could only manage a few hours before exhaustion set in. Imagine it, Amo. Every single step dragging at you, every breath feeling heavier, like the whole planet itself wanted to crush the life out of you.
Twice the standard. Amo's eyes widen again, making him look even more like a startled nocturnal creature. But that would mean everything would weigh double. A simple cargo crate would be impossible to move. Even carrying your own body would be torment.
Oh, well, that's just the beginning, my friend,
Severe said, thoroughly enjoying the genuine shock on Amo's face. This was why he loved telling stories to the Trazier. Every reaction was authentic, unfiltered by the cynicism that plagued most spacefaring species. Trazier never scoffed, never interrupted. They drank in every word as if it were priceless treasure.
The climate,
Severe continued, gesturing wildly with his glass, causing a few drops to splash onto the table,
"is absolutely insane. During what they call summer, the temperature can reach half the boiling point of water. Half! The Tridarians said they saw puddles literally steaming, creating these ghostly vapors that rose from the ground like the spirits of the damned."
Amo gasped, his feathers ruffling in distress.
Half the boiling point? That's 50 standard units. My species starts suffering heat stroke at 31. To think of walking under such a sun.
"And winter,"
Severe leaned back, taking another sip for dramatic effect.
"Winter makes the frozen waste of a few ice planets look like a tropical resort. There are places the temperature drops so low it could freeze mercury. Liquid metal, Amo, turned solid by the cold alone. Ice so hard it cuts like glass. Winds sharp enough to flay skin from bone. Entire oceans vanish under ice sheets thicker than city towers."
Really?
Amo said, shaking his head in amazement.
I wouldn't survive for a single day. How would anything live there naturally?
Severe nearly finished his drink in a single gulp, the burning sensation preparing his throat for what he considered the best part of the story.
But here's where it gets truly unbelievable. The beings who live on this planet, they are not just animals. They are sapients. And their relationship with food?
He paused, savoring the anticipation on Amos's face.
They can eat literally everything.
Everything?
Everything,
Severe confirmed with a solemn nod.
The merchants who dare to trade there, despite all the dangers, they always get rich. You know why? Because these creatures buy food from everywhere in the galaxy. They have no restrictions, no allergies, no incompatibilities. The Tridarians said they watched one of these beings eat a meal that contained ingredients from 5 different death worlds, including 3 items classified as toxic to 90% of known species.
Severe's excitement grew as he continued, his voice rising with each revelation.
Food from other death worlds. They import it as delicacies. Meat from predators that would tear most of us apart. Leaves from plants that secrete deadly neurotoxins. Even mushrooms that grow in radioactive soil. Spices that would dissolve our tongues. They sprinkle it on their food for flavor. And they don't just survive it, Amo. They relish it. They enjoy it. What would be our poison would be the feast.
His voice reached a crescendo, drawing curious glances from nearby tables.
This death world could make a merchant rich with anything they had in stock. No need to check compatibility charts. No worries about poisoning your customers. They'll eat it all and ask for seconds.
That's incredible.
Amos started to exclaim, but Severe cut him off with a raised hand, his expression suddenly grave.
But here's where the story turns dark, my friend.
Severe's voice dropped low again, forcing Amo to lean in close enough that Severe could smell the lingering phosphorescent residue from his soup.
Some merchants got greedy. They thought if these beings are so resilient, so different, imagine what they'd be worth on the slave markets.
The bar seemed to grow quieter, as the very air was listening to the tale.
One merchant, a Galaxian named Vror, he managed it. After dozens of successful trades, he'd gained their trust. The natives had stopped seeing him as a threat. That was his mistake. No, their mistake. He stunned one of them during a routine trade, loaded it onto his ship like cargo.
Severe's voice faltered slightly, the memory of the story sending chills through his yellow skin.
He thought he was safe when he reached his home world, light years away from that death world. He thought distance meant security.
Severe leaned back, his antennae drooping with the weight of what came next.
The Death Worlders came for him. Not with a diplomatic protest, not with trade sanctions. They came with warships. They violated 4 separate sovereignty treaties, ignored many more ceasefire demands, and when the Galaxian Defense Force tried to stop them,
he shook his head slowly.
They pushed through like the fleet was made of paper.
But Amo began.
They took him back,
Severe interrupted, his voice now barely a whisper.
Dragged Roar back to the Death World. The rumors say he was put in one of their prisons, subjected to that crushing gravity every moment of every day. They say he lasted 3 years before his body simply gave up. His bones had been compressed, his organs rearranged by the constant pressure. When he died, he was half his original height.
Amo's entire body trembled, his feathers standing on end like a frightened pet.
No species would risk war for a single individual like that. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make political sense. It doesn't...
But even as he spoke, Amo's body language betrayed his words. He had pulled his arms close to his body, his feathers flat against his skin in a defensive posture that his species adopted when faced with apex predators. The silence that followed Severe's story lingered for a short while. Amo sat frozen, his large blue eyes blinking rapidly.
How?
Amo's voice cracked slightly, and he cleared his throat before continuing.
How is this death world called? I need to know the name, Severe. I need to make sure I never, ever go there by mistake. Can you imagine? What if I took a cargo run and didn't check the destination properly? What if I ended up there?
Severe savored this moment, this genuine reaction of fear and fascination. This is why he liked to drink and tell stories, for that look of complete absorption, that moment when fiction became reality in the listener's mind. He opened his mouth, ready to admit that the Tradarians had never actually told him the name, that he didn't know if the place was real, that it was just another detail lost in the retelling of tales between drug merchants, when a voice from behind him spoke up. "That's Earth." Both Severe and Amo turned sharply toward the voice. Standing beside their booth was a being with soft pinkish skin, dressed in simple clothes that looked like they'd been purchased from any common fabricator. Plain synthetic fiber pants and a shirt with some incomprehensible alien script across the chest. The being was bipedal, roughly Severe's height, with a patch of brown fur on top of his head and small, forward-facing eyes that seemed amused. "I apologize for overhearing your conversation," the being continued, pulling up a chair from a nearby empty table and sitting down without invitation. "But I just couldn't stay quiet when I heard you two talking about Earth. That's my home. I live there." Severe felt his antennae become tense with irritation. Here was another storyteller, another merchant of tall tales trying to insert himself into Severe's moment. He examined the being more closely, soft-looking, no visible natural weapons, no armor plating, no evidence of the supreme adaptation needed to survive on a death world. This creature looked like it would struggle to survive on a garden world, let alone a planet that could freeze Mercury. "You're from this death world?" Severe asked, not bothering to hide his skepticism. "You're claiming to be from the planet in my story." "Well, we don't call it a death world," the being said with what appeared to be a smile, an expression that revealed small white teeth that didn't look capable of tearing through anything tougher than processed protein paste. "We just call it Earth, and yeah, everything you said is pretty accurate, though you've got some numbers a bit off. Our gravity is actually about 1.9 times Federation standard, not quite twice. And my people, we're called humans."
You're a human?
Amo gasped, his entire body quivering.
A real human from the death world called Earth? The same one from the story.
Severe wanted to groan. Of course, Amo would immediately believe this stranger. The Trozier would believe anything if it was presented with enough confidence. This was probably some con artist who had overheard enough merchant tales to piece together a convincing story. That's right, the supposed human said, extending his hand toward Amo in what seemed to be a greeting gesture. Name's Michael Davis. I'm here on a trade run, actually, bringing some Earth delicacies to sell at the station market.
This is amazing,
Amo exclaimed, eagerly grasping Michael's hand with his own feathered appendage, seemingly unbothered by the direct contact with an alleged Deathworlder.
Severe, can you believe it? A real human!
No, Severe said flatly. I can't believe it, because it's obviously not true.
He turned to Michael, his black eyes narrowing.
I've been trading stories in bars like this for 30 cycles. Do you know how many beings I've met who claimed to be from mythical worlds, who insisted they were survivors of the void worlds, or descendants of the first travelers, or...
He gestured dismissively at Michael.
Humans from the famous death world, Earth.
Michael shrugged, seeming unbothered by severe skepticism. I can't blame you for being doubtful. Earth does sound pretty unbelievable when you describe it like that. Though, I have to say, your story made it sound more dramatic than it actually is. We don't really think of ourselves as living on a death world. It's just home.
Of course it is, Severe said sarcastically. And I suppose you're going to tell us that you eat neurotoxins for breakfast and wrestle with high gravity for fun.
Well, I did have coffee this morning, Michael said thoughtfully. Caffeine is technically a neurotoxin, and I go to the gym regularly, which I guess is voluntary subjecting myself to physical stress under Earth gravity, so yeah. Amo made a small squeaking sound that Severe had learned indicated extreme excitement.
Oh, you really do eat toxins?
This is ridiculous,
Severe muttered. Then a thought struck him. If this Michael wanted to play games, Severe could play too. And even better, he could use Amo's gullible nature to his advantage.
All right then, human. If you're really from Earth, you should have no problem proving it.
Sure, Michael said easily. What do you have in mind? Severe's mind raced through possibilities. He needed something that would call his faker's bluff while also entertaining himself, and perhaps earning a few credits in the process.
Amo, my friend, you believe this human's claims, don't you?
Absolutely,
Amo chirped without hesitation.
Then you won't mind placing a small wager on it,
Severe suggested, his tone casual.
Just to make things interesting.
Well,
Amo hesitated, his feathers ruffling uncertainly.
Come on, Severe pressed. If you really believe he's human, what's the risk? I'll even give you excellent odds, 3-1 in your favor.
Michael leaned back in his chair, crossing his arms. You're trying to take advantage of your friend's trusting nature?
I'm trying to expose a fraud, Severe countered. Unless, of course, you're afraid of being revealed.
What's the test? Michael asked, his expression unreadable. Severe grabbed a menu from the table, flipping to the beverages section. His eyes scanned the list until he found what he was looking for, the section marked with multiple warning symbols. The drinks that required signed waivers and medical clearance for most species.
If you're truly from a death world where beings can consume anything, Severe said, sliding the menu across the table, then you should have no problem drinking everything in the restricted section, all of them, together.
Michael picked up the menu, his eyes moving down the list. Coffee, beer, Orion flower juice, and he paused. Luminous algae extract? You want me to drink all of these at once?
Too much for the mighty human,
Severe taunted. Michael's expression shifted to one of mild disgust. It's not that I can't handle them. Coffee and beer are standard Earth drinks. The flower juice is basically just nectar with some mild alkaloids. We have similar things on Earth, and bioluminescent organisms aren't inherently toxic, just weird. But mixing them all together? He shuddered slightly. That's going to taste absolutely terrible.
Excuses already.
Severe leaned forward, sensing weakness.
That's what I thought. You're just another...
Also, Michael interrupted. I don't usually drink coffee at night. The caffeine makes it hard to sleep, and I've got an early morning tomorrow. Severe almost laughed out loud. This was too perfect. The supposed Deathworlder was worried about his sleep schedule.
So, you're chickening out, admitting you can't do it.
I didn't say that, Michael protested. I'm just saying it's not ideal.
How about this?
Severe proposed, feeling more confident by the second. This was obviously just another storyteller, someone who enjoyed the attention of claiming to be something extraordinary.
I'll pay for all the drinks, and I'll add my own credits to the wager. 50 credits says you can't finish all 4 drinks.
100,
Amos suddenly chimed in, his voice filled with conviction.
100 credits says he can do it.
Severe turned to stare at his friend.
Amo, you don't have to.
I believe him,
Amos said firmly, his blue eyes blazing with determination.
He's a human. He can do it.
Michael looked between them, then sighed.
You know what? Fine. Maybe it won't taste that bad.
I've had worse at college parties. He paused, then added. Though I'm not sure what the exchange rate is between credits and dollars, so I hope I'm not agreeing to anything too expensive. Severe could barely contain his glee as he waved over the bartender, a 6-armed deltroid whose multiple eyes widened in alarm when Severe pointed to the restricted section of the menu.
You want all of these?
The bartender asked, his translator crackling with disbelief.
For consumption, together.
The bartender's eyes swiveled to focus on Michael.
Sir, I'm required to inform you that these beverages contain compounds that are toxic to 93% of known species. Consuming them in combination has never been tested and could result in immediate organ failure, neurological damage, or death.
He knows, Severe said smugly. He claims to be human. The bartender's entire body went rigid.
Human? From Earth?
Several of his arms started moving in what looked like religious gestures.
Sir, I'll need you to sign a waiver. The establishment cannot be held responsible for any damage resulting from consuming Deathworlder beverages.
Deathworlder beverages? Michael asked, looking amused. Is that really a category?
Page 45 of the menu, the bartender said, producing a digital pad seemingly from nowhere. Please read and sign all sections of the waiver.
As Michael read through the waiver, making occasional sounds of amusement, may cause temporal displacement. Really? Severe counted his credits mentally. When this fake human backed out of seeing the legal documentation or collapsed after his first sip, Severe would not only win the bet, but also have a great story about exposing a fraud. The bartender returned with 4 containers, each glowing, steaming, or emanating unusual colors. The coffee was black as space itself, an oily sheen that reflected rainbow patterns. The beer fizzled violently, releasing small sparks of electricity with each bubble that burst. The Orion flower juice was a violent purple that seemed to shift to pink when viewed from different angles, and the luminous algae extract literally glowed with a toxic green light, casting eerie shadows on the table.
Your drinks, sir,
the bartender said, taking several steps back after placing them on the table.
Should I alert medical?
That won't be necessary, Michael said, picking up the coffee first. He sniffed it, wrinkled his nose, then took a large gulp. Severe watched, waiting for the reaction, the gagging, the convulsions, something. Instead, Michael just made a face like he had bitten into something sour.
Okay, that's strong,
Michael said, setting down the cup.
Like, really strong.
Someone quadruple concentrated this. It's like espresso made with espresso instead of water. He picked up the beer next. This is going to make the combination even worse. He drank the beer in several long pulls, pausing once to suppress a belch.
Excuse me. The carbonation is intense.
And there's something else. Capsaicin? Did someone make spicy beer to market that you sell Earth's food? He shook his head. That's just wrong. The Orion flower juice went down next, and this time Michael did shudder.
Oh, that's floral. Intensely floral.
Like someone liquefied an entire garden and added sugar, coating my entire mouth with this weird numbing sensation. Finally, he picked up the glowing algae extract. And this is going to make everything worse, he muttered, then downed it in one go. His face went through a series of expressions: surprise, disgust, confusion, and finally resignation. "That," Michael said slowly, "was one of the worst combinations of flavors I've ever experienced." He stuck out his tongue and scraped it with his teeth. "The aftertaste is haunting. It's like my mouth can't decide which horrible flavor to focus on, so it's cycling through all of them."
"But you drank them,"
Amos said triumphantly.
"all of them."
Severe stared at Michael, who, apart from looking mildly disgusted, seemed completely unaffected. No trembling, no sweating, no signs of organ failure. Around them, other bar patrons had gathered, watching in amazement.
"That's impossible," Severe said flatly. "The flower juice alone should have paralyzed your nervous system." "Nah, it's just making my tongue feel funny," Michael said, working his jaw. "Kind of like when you eat too much pineapple, you know? The enzymes start breaking down the proteins in your mouth." "Ugh, double or nothing," Severe said suddenly.
This had to be some kind of trick. Maybe Michael had taken some kind of universal antitoxin before coming to the bar.
"If you're really from a high-gravity death world, you won't mind demonstrating your strength."
"How?" Michael asked.
"Gravity chamber," Severe said. "This establishment has one in the VIP area. They use it for exercise, physical therapy, that kind of thing. If you're really from Earth, you should be able to handle double the standard gravity easily."
Michael stood up, swaying slightly.
"Okay, the drinks are hitting me a little bit," he admitted.
"Not the toxins, just that was a lot of liquid, and I think the caffeine and alcohol are arguing with each other in my bloodstream. But sure, let's do the gravity thing. Double standard gravity would actually feel like home."
"It's a bet, then,"
Amos said excitedly, pulling out his credit chip.
"Another 100 credits."
"Amo, stop,"
Severe said, though he was already calculating his own wager.
"You're going to lose everything."
"I don't think so,"
Amo replied with unusual confidence. The VIP section of the bar was separated by a crystalline barrier with security fields. Severe's merchant credentials got them through, and soon they stood before a circular chamber with transparent walls about 3 meters in diameter. The attendant, a spindly insectoid being, asked when Severe explained what they wanted.
"Sir, the chamber can reach 6 times standard gravity. That's enough to crush most beings instantly."
"We just need double,"
Severe said quickly. "Actually," Michael said, studying the control panel, "what's 6 times standard in Earth gravity?"
"That would be,
The attendant compounded eyes glittered as he calculated.
approximately 3 times Earth gravity, if the Federation database is accurate."
"I could probably handle that for a little while," Michael said thoughtfully. "I mean, I'm in decent shape. I work out regularly. Fighter pilots and astronauts train at 3 Gs.
"You're insane," Severe said. "Even if you are human, that would kill you."
"Not kill," Michael corrected, "but it wouldn't be comfortable. Let's start with double standard and see how it feels." He stepped into the chamber, rolling his shoulders and stretching his neck.
"All right, ready when you are."
Severe's hand hesitated over the control panel. If this being really was human and something happened, but no, that was impossible. This was just an elaborate con. He activated the chamber. The change was immediate. Michael's posture shifted slightly, his knees bending a bit more, but otherwise he seemed unaffected. "Oh, it's actually nice," he said, his voice coming through the chamber's communication system. "This is about the same as Earth's gravity. Feels like nothing at all."
"Increase it," Severe said to the attendant. 2.5 times standard."
The gravity field intensified. Michael's expression became more focused, but he started doing squats. "Now we're at about Earth normal, maybe a little over. This is my everyday gravity." Amo was practically vibrating with excitement.
"He's doing exercises in gravity that would crush us."
3 times standard,"
Severe ordered, his voice cracking slightly. Michael had to brace himself as the gravity increased. "Okay, now it's getting heavy. I can feel it in my joints." He took a few careful steps, then did a slow push-up. "Yeah, definitely feeling that."
4 times,"
Severe whispered.
"Sir, I must protest," the attendant began.
"Do it!"
The gravity increased again. This time, Michael dropped to one knee, breathing heavily. "Okay, this is rough. About double Earth gravity. Everything feels twice as heavy as it should." He slowly stood up, his face reddening with effort. "I can stand, but I wouldn't want to stay like this for long."
5 times, Severe said, ignoring the gasp from the groaning crowd of onlookers.
Sir, I cannot.
I'll sign a waiver, Michael called out from the chamber. I'm curious too.
The attendant reluctantly adjusted the controls. Michael immediately dropped to his hands and knees, his arms shaking with effort of holding himself up.
Okay, this is approaching my limit, he gasped. Everything weighs almost, I'd say 3 times what I'm used to. My blood feels heavy. My organs are being pulled down. I can maybe do this for a few minutes before something gives.
Turn it off,
Amos said suddenly.
Turn it off! He proved his point!
Severe nodded to the attendant, who quickly powered down the chamber. Michael collapsed onto his back as the gravity returned to normal, breathing heavily, but laughing.
That was fun, he said, slowly sitting up. Well, I'm going to be sore tomorrow. Probably should have stretched more first.
Severe stared at the human because there was no denying it now. This was definitely a human from Earth, with a mixture of awe and disbelief. Everything he had told as a story, all the merchant tales he had thought were exaggerations, they were real. More than real. The truth was even more impressive than the stories he liked to tell.
You're really from Earth, he said.
Told you, Michael said, accepting Amos' help to stand. He swayed slightly, then steadied himself.
Though, between the drinks and the gravity, I might need to sit down a bit.
Back at their booth, with Michael sipping water to dilute the truly awful combination of beverages still coating his mouth, Severe found himself in an unusual position, owing credits on a lost bet.
So,
he said, pulling out his credit chip,
I suppose I owe you.
Keep it, Michael said, waving him off. I don't even know what the exchange rate is, and honestly, watching your face when I started doing push-ups in triple gravity was payment enough.
But the bet
was made to take advantage of your friend, Michael said, his tone becoming more serious. You knew Amo would believe anything, and you used that to try to make credits off his trusting nature. But I am a human, and you lost. Severe felt his antennae droop with an unfamiliar emotion. Shame. He looked at Amo, who was still staring at Michael with undisguised wonder, apparently unbothered by the fact that he could have lost a significant amount of credits.
Are you angry?
Severe asked Michael. Not angry, the human replied. Just disappointed. Amo seems like a genuinely nice being. He doesn't deserve to be taken advantage of just because he sees the best in people or in stories. He stood up, stretching his back with a series of concerning popping sounds.
Anyway, I should get going. Early morning tomorrow. I need to sleep off whatever was in that flower juice. My tongue is still numb.
As Michael walked away, Severe turned to Amo.
I apologize,
he said, the words feeling strange in his mouth.
It's okay,
Amo said brightly.
I knew you didn't believe your own story, or that he was really a human.
You knew?
Of course. You do it every time we meet. But I don't mind, because your stories are entertaining, and sometimes they turn out to be true.
Amos' feathers ruffled with pleasure.
Like today. We met a real human.
Severe stared at his friend, reevaluating everything he thought he knew about the Trozier. Then, making a decision that surprised even himself, he called the bartender over.
Everything my friend has consumed tonight. Put it on my account.
But Michael said,
Amo began.
Michael's not here to hold me accountable anymore, Severe said. This is me choosing to do the right thing.
As Amo expressed his gratitude with a series of happy chirps, Severe found his mind wandering to thoughts of his small trading vessel currently docked at the station with a hold full of various foodstuffs from across the galaxy. Foods that he had been struggling to sell because of incompatibility with most species' biochemistry. But humans could eat anything. They actively sought out variety, thrived on the exotic and unusual. A death world that wasn't really a death world, just a place where the most impressive species in the galaxy had evolved to consume, survive, and be happy eating absolutely everything.
Amo,
he said suddenly. How would you like to go into business together?
Business?
Trading. With Earth. I have a ship full of food no one else can eat. And now, I know about a whole planet of beings who would probably pay premium prices for exotic delicacies. Plus, he added with a slight smile, I think they need someone there who won't try to kidnap the locals. Amos's eyes lit up.
We're going to Earth? The Death World?
We're going to Earth, Severe confirmed. Though I don't think we should call it a death world to their faces. They seem to just think of it as a normal planet. As they shook on their new partnership, Severe's smooth hand grasping Amos's feathered one, Severe reflected on how one chance encounter had changed his perspective entirely. The stories were real. The legends were true. And those humans really existed. Severe couldn't wait to see it for himself. And this time, when he returned with stories, they would all be true.